Hey, and we're live. Sorry to say Joe couldn't make it again this week, but we're hoping he's going to be back to 100% or at least good enough to join us next week. But I'm going to keep the show going. Last week was the first time he couldn't come on. Cheers, there, Robert. So, Mr. Fulton, I see you there in the chat. Hope you had fun on your picnic there. James Morgan, good to see you. Robert and friends, cheers. So I'm going to do a regular show tonight, but to keep it going, this is about American whiskey. Before we get started on that, though, the number one global selling whiskey is Jack Daniels. So that is the number one. Mike Carrier, how's it going? It's been dominating that global market. And I know that Jack Daniels is classified itself as a Tennessee whiskey, but it could be called a bourbon. They just choose not to call it a bourbon, but it's made in the style of bourbon, and so is Uncle Nearest and other things. But the second top sellers are Jim Beam, and Evan Williams comes in third. So then right after that, you get into the Johnny Walker. And so, but Johnny Walker, even though Johnny Walker is not, in a lot of aficionados' opinion, a great, neither of these, but that's what's tops. But the top sellers aren't always people that's going to sit around sipping it neat. Beam and Coke, Jack and Coke, Crown and ginger ale, that type of stuff. People like to mix them up. But if you're going to get into good sipping whiskey, that it's the scotches and bourbons and things like that tend to stand out. Now, we all know because we've discussed it before. Okay, thank you, Samantha. So as we discussed before, 51 or more percent corn in the mash. Typically, you see more, around 60, 65% corn. There are bourbons out there that go all the way to 100% corn, and then there's different kinds of corn. Oh, and the scrolling going across the bottom of the screen down here. I did shoot a documentary film. If y'all have not seen it yet, I know a lot of y'all have. If you haven't seen it, it's live. The premiere's over. It's out there. It's like the third or fourth video now on my channel. It's pretty easy to find at the moment. Excuse me. What I have in my glass here right now, though, is something that I kind of recommend. It's not a bourbon. It's an American whiskey, but it's a Kentucky straight wheat whiskey, and it's Bernheim. And this is distilled and bottled by Bernheim Distillery in, I believe it's Bardstown. Yep, Bardstown, Kentucky. Just checking my facts on that. One thing this can do for you, though, is allows you, just like a straight rye, allows you to isolate and pick out that rye. This will allow you to get those bready wheat notes and things like that and really focus in on that. Now, this is pretty sweet stuff. It's very soft, very gentle. It's a little too gentle, but it's a good little sipper, But it's like a little dessert thing. It's like candy. There's not a lot of notes to it. You're going to get the wheat stuff, and that's about it. You're going to get the wood sugars, though. They do barrel it. They do age it, 7 years aged on this Bernheim. So you do get the vanilla, and you get the caramel in the background there. Vanilla's pretty upfront, but wheat is more like just a soft vessel. And typically, the corn and the wheat and the aging and all, and they'll put a little malted barley even in wheated bourbons. This has no malted barley in it, so you're not going to get that nutty flavor. You're not going to get any of those notes you get out of a malted grain. But this does help you to isolate it, and it's not that expensive. I do have some ryes up here, but one of my favorites is Uncle Nearest. And this, just like Jack Daniels, it could be called a bourbon. But they call it a Tennessee whiskey because it's maple charcoal filtered. Other than that, Tennessee came up, and this Uncle Nearest was the one that invented the charcoal filtering process, and dubbed it Tennessee whiskey. That's more like hometown pride calling it that instead of calling it a bourbon, because there's nothing in the law that says you can't charcoal filter the bourbon. So there's that. What I have here is just your basic rye. This is from Buffalo Trace. This is good for a mixer. This one's a little rough straight, I can tell you that. But some other ones I've had over here. Old Humble, I did a review of this one, the Double Oak. That's really good, and that review is out there. I've reviewed all of these, by the way, but I have hundreds of videos out there. The other one I really like is Tawakaro, TAH. It's out of Grapevine, Texas. I picked this up when I was traveling through around in Arkansas, and it's a good multi-noted rye, and I like to use this in old fashions. So, but I don't mix bourbons, but I will mix ryes. But I don't drink a lot of mixed drinks anyway. Let me catch up with the chat here just a little bit. All right, looks like we got Angie Mason Fluid Art, Mr. Great Shot. How's it going? Samantha Lee's in here. I think I've shouted out everyone now. But yeah, this is a really gentle sipper here. If you can get your hands on it, which is pretty widely available, I think. I bought it right down here in North Carolina, but we're only one state over. But if I finish this one, I may pour some Uncle Nearest. But yeah, I like to isolate those grains in there, like I was talking about, and malted barley, 100% malted barley, that's single malt Scotch, right? But if it's made in the United States, it won't be called Scotch because it's made in the U.S. And so it would just be a malted. It would be a barley American whiskey or a single malt American whiskey, but yeah, they won't call it Scotch unless it comes from Scotland. And that's the American law. Excuse me. I do not have COVID, by the way, but we do have someone in the house that does have COVID. We're taking many, many precautions. I just have some sinus stuff going on. But we had one of my kids went to camp, picked it up there. Wife went to pick them up. I brought all my stuff into this room, doors closed. I put a mask on just to go right outside. I'm isolating in my own home. Luckily, our house is big enough. They're at one end of the house, I'm at the other, that we can isolate like this. So, yeah, I moved all their drinks out to the other refrigerator. And this is the game room fridge, beer fridge, I call it, but it's usually a drink fridge. And people foot traffic through here to get a drink, but I moved all their stuff out so that we won't have to do that. The other announcement I was going to make, I know I'm kind of off topic here, but we'll get back to it here in just a second, is I did pick up a new guitar today. And I have to show this off right quick. I went in to get a Martin, and I walked out with a Taylor. So yeah, it's a Taylor Dreadnought, body shape, all that. Good pickups on it. It sounds like a dream, though. I played a lot of the guitars in the shop, and yeah, this one here stood out. I'm not going to play on this show because I am going to monetize this, and I don't really know any tunes of my own. So I always get copyright claims when I play. So I'm not going to do it here, but I'll do it in the after party. And this may be a shorter show here tonight without Joe being here. And I know I'm not mic'd up. I have the mic laying here, so I may have sounded a little muffled when I went over there to put that up. So, we do have Crazy Ann down in the basement jumping up here. Hello, Crazy Ann. How are you?
Hi.
I am discussing American whiskey.
Okay.
And bourbon is an American whiskey. All right.
Mhm.
But it's not. So all bourbon is are whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. Did you know that?
It's complicated.
It's complicated. So, what we're talking about is even worldwide best-selling stuff, things like that. And I just looked it up, and whatever the websites tell me, that's what I'm regurgitating here before the show. And I sat down, and they were talking about global sales of stuff, and they're talking about airplane bottles all the way through. You know, it's just sales of the juice, and Jack Daniels is sitting on top, dominating the whole thing. And it's called a Tennessee whiskey, but it could be a bourbon. So we've already covered that part.
Okay, good to know.
Hmm. And you don't care.
Hey, I buy a lot of this stuff. Well, not bourbon much, but whiskey. I bought a lot of that from my ex, from my neighbor, and stuff like that. So yeah,
Oh
and
yeah.
I always read the etiquette, what says on it, because they are picky sometimes. So I always find the good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you need some help with that sometime, you have friends online that can give you a tip or two.
Yeah.
And if I don't know, I have friends that really know Scotch, and I have friends that really know other rye. I have friends that I can get you the answer.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know.
So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, so I was going to talk about whiskey. So the things that whiskey and bourbon have in common on American law, United States law, is whiskey has to be distilled at no higher than 160 proof, and it has to go into the barrel at no higher than 125 proof. Now, bourbon requires a new charred oak barrel, unused, so it can't have had any other thing besides water. Sometimes they'll put water in a barrel, let it expand a little bit, dump it, and then they'll put the bourbon in. But all that's doing is sealing the barrel, right? So it causes the wood to expand a little. If there's any seeps, they check for those, and then they watch for it, and they'll seal it. It'll seal itself up, and so they'll soak it overnight with full of water, and then they'll dump it, and then but it's still unused. Water is water. But then they'll put the mash in there, and it looks clear. So the water, the juice going into the barrel is white dog, clear. But the other thing with it is all whiskey has to be aged in barrel, but it can be a used barrel. So they could use, if you're making some other type of whiskey besides bourbon, it can be a used barrel. Just like Scotch, they use bourbon barrels, sherry casks, things like that. And they don't even it never hits a new unused oak barrel. You get softer notes that way. You don't get the wood tannins coming out because the barrel's already been, a lot of that's already been extracted, used up. But that's the complication around behind that. Now there's neutral spirits like vodka, clear, the PGA type stuff. It can be distilled. Well, vodka itself, neutral spirit, can't be distilled. I believe it's 180 proof. It can't be higher than 180. So they give them a little more. Uh, but the bottling is still the same. It can't be lower than 40, 40 proof. I mean, not yeah, yeah. 80 proof, 40%, 80 proof. I knew I had that screwed up, but anyway. Um, but I don't really like this is 80 proof. So I call them 4080s. That's your regular old Jim Beam. To me, that's a little too low, but there's a lot of good Scotch out there that is bottled at that proof. So it just depends on where you're making. Yeah, first fill ex bourbon. Yep, yep. And I think it imparts a really good flavor. And I'm not one of these types that I'm a bourbon guy. Screw your Scotch. I'm not like that. I judge the drink based on the notes, the taste, and all of that. and I can enjoy Scotch. I just don't get into it and study it and all of that like I do bourbon. But that was really, really fun on Thursday doing the live with Malt Muser whiskey reviews out of Chicago. He is fantastic. He has a wealth of knowledge of Scotch, and he knows a lot about bourbons as well. He's just probably been doing this a while. But now he's got a really, really good palate. We both have a really decent palate. See, less toffee and vanillins. Well, yeah, it will be because, like I said, a lot of those wood sugars that have already been extracted from it. Bourbon tends to be a sweeter drink because the wood sugars coming out. I mean, that's what's really popping a lot of that flavor that you get from bourbons. And bourbon does share notes across all bourbons, but there are bourbons that will blow you out of the water when it comes. And one of them I had sent to Malt Muser was the Calumet Farms 15 year. And I think as a unique bourbon, I like Duke, but I call it the fruit salad. But I really like Duke, and I like the Grand Cru Reserve because it just gives me a whole completely different set of notes than I get from almost any other bourbon at all. So that's what I really enjoy about it. And I like to have it on my shelf to go to every once in a while and remind myself how different bourbons can be. One of the ones that you can find more readily that I think is a lower price bourbon, but I think it drinks above its cost point is Old Forester 1920. Or that, and if you find a good batch of it, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is usually stock full of notes as well. And I do tend to go for the barrel proof cast strengths, higher proof bourbons, because to me, I get more notes out of that, and I can choose to add some water to my snifter, open it up, bring out different notes and things like that. It brings that vanilla out a little more when you do that too. In Taiwan, get the benefits of fast or slow. Yeah, maturation. Yeah, and a lot of them, they'll dig down and they'll have basement areas, cellar areas in their around their rick houses. And down there, that's your it's either that or they climate control that environment, but that costs a fortune when they climate control it like that. Heat and air on a facility like that is expensive, but in certain parts of America, no, you have to. Otherwise, you would get just a bitter, oaky, just over oaked whiskey if you didn't climate control it. But even in some of the cooler areas, they'll dig down and make a cellar area, but that's where their reserves and all of that stuff go, and their really long aged stuff is down at the bottom where it's a lot cooler. Cooler weather tends to age it slower, and then going from cold to hot, cold to hot, cold to hot will cause different aging process, and that's rocking and a rolling, splishing and a splashing, Jefferson's Ocean. That's what their big shtick is they put it on a boat and go up back and forth across the equator. And so, yeah, it's just in that ship rocking and a rolling. I don't know. It's $85+ to get a Jefferson's Ocean, and I had it against Jefferson's Reserve. I had it against some other Jefferson's whiskeys. To me, it's not worth the uptick in cost. I've had way better bourbons for around that price. Booker's is kind of getting on up there where it's knocking on the door of $100 standard price, but I used to get Booker's for $75, and now you can't find it for under 90. I think they need to slow down or they're going to price themselves out because people there's other bourbons out there to get. And, Little Book is underseller compared to Booker's because it's around $120, $125, but that's a gift. Birthday comes once a year. I buy one bottle a year. Well, that's not going to keep a distillery going, So there's that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about even American whiskey, it's made in America, but most of the rye comes from Canada. A lot of the rye comes from Canada. There is some rye that's grown in the northern tier, northern states of the United States, and that's covered in that documentary as well. And I brought that question out so they could talk about it. But yeah, a lot of rye, but that's why you get a lot of Canadian rye whiskeys. They make a lot of rye whiskeys out of Canada. It's their home grain, but we do purchase a lot of grain and have it shipped down. And I don't think they're real picky about it. Once it's sorted and cleaned and all that type of stuff, they get it. And the grains don't have to come from the United States to call it American whiskey, even though North South America, I mean, Canadians, North America, they're part of that, but but usually when we say American whiskey, we're talking about United States, and that's kind of in the context of what I'm talking about it here tonight. Is you had the little red, white, and blue going, and the eagle drinking out of the snifter and all that type of stuff. Oh wow, so crazy, Ann.
Are you
learning anything?
It's a lot of info. It's a lot of info in one say. I'm learning, but it depends how long it stick there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can play the part of Joe if you want, and but you won't be drinking any chicken cock.
Damn. I wish I had that. Maybe I will like that. You never know.
Yeah. Well, without Joe here, I'm probably going to end this a little early, but I did want to bring you some actual content this week instead of just coming out for 4 minutes and saying Joe wasn't going to be here. But yeah, hopefully we'll get back into our normal, 45-minute shows or whatever next week, and he'll be here. But I just cover through stuff, and normally we go back and forth, and he'll ask questions and I'll answer them and things like that. So it kind of helps to lengthen the content out a little bit. But I am going to set up an after party. My fingers are a little sore because I did play for almost 3.5 hours when I bought that guitar today. So I got a new guitar.
Is that what you was showing right before I jump on?
Yep.
When you get
Yeah, I got a Taylor, and Big Daddy H got a Martin. So we were going to get the same guitar. I was going to get a Martin Series 10. It was a special road series with the electronics, and and the one I got has a pickup on it, but I don't have the built-in tuner. But when I was sitting and playing them in the store, I was playing the road series and this Taylor I got, and the Taylor is just a crisper, brighter, easier. Like, it just sounds so good unplugged that I decided to go with it. But I called my dad. That's Big Daddy Age, and I said, Dad, they got your guitar here, but they can ship you one exactly like it. Now, I told him what I thought about the way they played. Both of them sounded great. This one just edged it out for me. I think the bass on it was a little bit better on the Big E, and it had a brighter mid-range on it through the strings, and it was just a good even sound coming out of it. The other one sounded, I mean, you have to play them back to back to back to really notice, but the Martin was just a teeny bit more muffled to me when I was listening to it, when I was strumming, and I don't use a pick. So I need something that'll come through a little bit louder. And I rarely ever play with an amp. I mean, I have pickup on this just in case I ever want to. I have that option, but I don't normally do that. Hey, how's it going? Samantha Lee, original raid. And I'm getting close to ending this show, but anyway, I picked up the Taylor. He still wanted the Martin, but he plays in bars and stuff and all that. And he wanted that built-in little tuner inside it's inside the hole on the Dreadnought. And he can just look down and hit the button pluck the string and tune it real quick, and then turn it back off, and then keep playing. It doesn't have any options. What's up, Bourbon Rendezvous? It doesn't have, and Kimberly Ferris and Raven the Blackbird. How's it going? So it doesn't have any settings for like out of 440. It's just a 440 tune, but that's typically all we tune them to anyway, is a 440. So, but we'll be tuned together. I told him, I said, the sound of this guitar and the way it felt and everything, I just like this one better. So I'll just use my phone here in front of me, which he doesn't have the option to do that when he's playing in the bars. So he stuck with that one. But it shipped already. It's shipped out of Kansas City, and he's in Arkansas, so it should be there Monday, Tuesday or so. So he'll be getting that, and he's going to sound really, really, really good with that Martin. But Martin and Taylor are the two top acoustics. You know, Gibson makes some good ones, and there's some other ones, but Martin and Taylor is usually what you see on stage anyway. So with that, I am going to set up an after party right quick, and I am going to go over to StreamYard here.
A lot of people. I hope they join the after party then.
Well, I'm going to post it as soon as I get it set here, and I'm just going to call it after party, but I have to put something in the description. Saturday sip along after party. All right. And I'm going to create it right now, and I have to end this within 5 minutes because, excuse me, Facebook will cancel it if I don't get it started. So I am going to grab the link out here.
See?
Do you have the link, Trajan?
If I want a link?
Well, I'll find it. Never mind. I just scheduled it, so it's popping out there.
There you go.
Upcoming is right here. After party. Get shareable link. That's what I wanted. Now I can come back here and I can post the after party in the chat. So that's where we're headed right there. And as soon as I go live, you'll see it. If you're on Facebook, you'll see it there. But if you want to jump over to YouTube, that's fine. But guys, I'm going to end this and I'm going to head over to that. I'm going to start the live on the after party and hope to see you there. So hope I brought you some good information.